Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'll do something new, I think. I'm going to do the recommended setting from a game. I don't think I've done one in the past, so this will be my first. And my first game on the list will be Once Human. The recommended setting is the Intel i7-7700. Again, no AMD CPU on the recommended setting. 16GB of memory, GTX1060 6GB, AMD Radeon RX580, the 2304 SP. This is the RX570. And the Intel Arc A380. Welcome to Response PC. I'm Dunk. Let's game on. First off, the quick disclaimer. The game was tested on a fresh install of Windows with the latest update and no junkware installed on the PC. Also, I want to point out I don't have the i7-7700, but I have the i7-5920K, which is in performance quite similar. The 7700 has a higher clock and the 5920K have more core, or maybe it balance, who knows. So the i7-5920K, 16GB of memory, and we start with the GTX1060 6GB. We're playing at 1080p at the highest settings, and that gives us an average of 46 FPS. If you remember my proposed minimum requirement, the 1060 6GB variant was giving about 55 FPS at high instead of highest settings, but we were bottlenecked by the CPU. But if you drop some settings to high instead of the highest, you get your 60 FPS. This is the perfect recommended settings if the target was 60 FPS at 1080p. And you see the GPU is at 99 to 100%, so the GPU is pegged, it's maxed out. It's using 4.8 to 5GB of VRAM, so that's nice also. The CPU is no more bottleneck, but is in the 80 to 90% of utilization, almost max out. And for the RAM, we're using between 9 to 10GB of memory, so 16GB is necessary. Throwing in the next GPU, the RX580, 8GB. I don't have the 2048 SP, so it's going to be this one for this test. Or maybe I should have used my RX570 because it's similar performance. Anyway, here's the RX580 full core 8GB. And with this AMD GPU, I find some weird stuff happening. Like in my proposed minimum requirement, when I put the AMD card in it, the CPU have stopped doing his job, or doing way less his job, because now the CPU is at a 46 to 50% utilization. The GPU is peg. It's like he's trying to put more job on the GPU. I know at some point in time, the Once Human was promoting AMD, so they were in partnership of some kind. I don't know which kind of a job they're pushing more on the GPU, but it seems to affect the performance. And it's funny that they promote AMD on the title of their game when in the proposed minimum requirement they don't put any AMD CPU. Since we didn't find our 60 FPS GPU to play at 1080p highest setting, I decided to throw in the famous GTX1080ti. And at 1080p with the highest settings, I think this is our winner for 60 FPS. We're averaging 63 FPS. And the GPU still have some room to breathe, only using 4.6, 4.7GB of VRAM and utilization on 87 to 95%. The CPU is in the mid 60 and the RAM is 10 to 11GB of utilization. That is the perfect combination to play this game at the highest settings at over 60 FPS. The GPU still have a lot of mileage to go, and even more if the game that is being made is in DX11. And just because why not? The RTX2070 non-Ti, which gave a similar performance as a 1080 Ti, if I get it right. At the highest settings, at 1080p, we're able to play at 67 FPS, a bit better than the GTX1080 Ti. The GPU is almost at a 5GB of VRAM and 86 to 90% of utilization. CPU utilization is in the 60s, and we're using about 10.2, 10.3GB of memory. We get as high as 85 FPS and as low as mid 50 FPS. Another great combination to play at high settings. Good thing to notice also, if you remember my proposed minimum requirement video, this time with every graphics at the highest possible. We didn't have any skinless character. We always had our skin. There's so many jokes about skin, but I will restrain myself. But it seems that playing at the highest settings, the skin is always there. Unfortunately, the demo was not long enough for me to do the part of real minimum requirement. So we're gonna have to wait until the game came out on July 9. And that's all for my first video of recommended setting. Tell me what you think in the comments and post your PC spec, so when the game come out, if you want me to test your setups, I can try it. And I'll see you on the next one. And subscribe.